So Crunchyroll has finally acquired and started assimilating Funimation. This is something that is not necessarily new in the news of anime and whatnot, but when it first dropped, like I want to say 2+ years ago, that Crunchyroll was going to be acquiring Funimation, I was not sure if it would actually go through or not. I remember there was like some legal things going on. The government stepped in to potentially block this merger, and we'll go into why. But before we talk about anything, I just want to say, yeah, I'm still a little bit sick. So if I sound like shit, please be nice because I'm very sensitive and I cry very easily, and you will make me cry. And if you do, you're evil. So, the main question of today is this a good or a bad thing? And what that really boils down to is how you personally feel about companies having essentially a monopoly on a certain thing. In this case, Crunchyroll will essentially have a monopoly on anime distribution in the West. Now, it won't be a full one because things like Netflix and Amazon Prime, I believe, both have. I mean, I know Netflix has anime on it, I know Amazon Prime does, but it's a very small amount, and I don't think they're fighting very hard for new anime rights. I think they're fine with just having a little bit to offer their subscribers. So essentially, this means that Crunchyroll will own anime in the West. Now, the thing about a monopoly, and that's, by the way, if you didn't know why the United States government stepped in and stopped this merger for a little bit, it was basically because they said, hey, in this dang old country, you can't have a monopoly on things. You can't have a company come in and buy out every company that does the same exact thing as them, because then you'd have a monopoly, and that's not allowed. But I'm pretty sure they definitely rescinded that. And I'm pretty sure why is because the argument could definitely be made that this is not a true monopoly, that there are some other streaming services that are going to be offering anime, so you can't really call it a monopoly, even though essentially that's exactly what it is. Like I said before, as for it being good or bad, it really comes down to how you feel about companies having a monopoly on things, or what is essentially a monopoly. Now, there are always benefits and potential downsides to a company having a monopoly on something. The benefits to the consumer are, well, everything you want is going to be in one place. Crunchyroll is probably going to have like 70% of anime that you will be looking for, which is nice. You only need to have one streaming service, and that is a good thing. I personally really like that. Another example of something that kind of has a de facto monopoly on in online shopping would be Amazon. Amazon, say what you will, but it is very convenient that almost any product you can think of in the entire world, you can just search up on Amazon and get it in 2 days. There is always a lot of downsides, or really potential downsides. And so that's what I want to focus on today, because I'm not a fan of companies having monopolies. I don't really care. I don't have like a moral problem with it, whatever, chase that bag. But the problem is when you have a monopoly over something, you can really just do whatever you want because people do not have an alternative. So I I personally wouldn't be super surprised if we see a price increase for Crunchyroll in the near future, maybe in the next 6 months to a year. Um, that is something they'll be able to do because before, you know, even though Funimation wasn't a perfect alternative, if Crunchyroll had randomly just said, we're doubling our price for the base subscription, people would be like, whoa, 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 what the fuck? No, 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 I'm going over to Funimation. Now, they can kind of just do whatever they want because they know that essentially they are the only source for legal, easy anime streaming. Another potential downside, especially pertaining to media, um, is that now obviously Crunchyroll is going to have a lot easier time acquiring rights to produce their own anime like they've been trying to do more and more. And because they're not really having to worry about competition as much, I know Netflix has some of its own original anime, but they pretty much all suck ass and no one cares. It essentially means that quality control does not really apply to them. They don't really have to care about making really good stuff because what are you going to do? Go somewhere else? There is nowhere else now. So they can basically just keep churning out trash like not Attack on Titan, what is Tower of God. I don't know why it took me so long to think of that, but remember Tower of God and how much of a shit show that was. Well, now what little checks and balances there were to try and prevent things like that, they're gone, right? There is no one to oppose Crunchyroll, so they can essentially buy out the rights to your favorite manga, make an absolutely garbage adaptation of it, and suffer absolutely no consequences for it. At the end of the day, what I'm saying is hypothetical. They could do this. Crunchyroll could also step up in a pretty big way and use their new dominance over the industry to better themselves. We don't know yet. I don't anticipate that happening, but I'm trying to keep an open mind. I'm trying to remain relatively neutral, even though for the most part monopolies don't really vibe with me. But I'm intrigued. I think that the potential outweighs, like the potential good outweighs the potential bad, but it is much more likely that the potential bad will become a reality versus the potential good, because there's not really any motivation, at least right now. And now that Crunchyroll has such a dominant spot in anime, I can really only picture like three companies on the entire planet that could potentially challenge that. There would be Netflix, which I've been saying for years that Netflix needs to just put a bunch of money into making Netflix anime. And I don't mean they need to make their own anime. They need to make a separate service just called Netflix Anime. That way, you corral the degenerates away from your normal streaming service. You don't have to have anime on your normal streaming service, so normal people won't accidentally see anime and be like, oh, what the fuck? Ugh, gross. And they have enough money to buy out rights for things. The other company would be Amazon. I know Amazon is pumping a bunch of money into expanding their media libraries, and they have enough money. They definitely have way more money than Crunchyroll has. There's pretty much nobody on earth except for the next company that I'm going to name, and that's Disney. Now, I don't think Disney really gives a fuck or shit about anime, nor should they, because they're making enough money for 50,000 companies and they don't have to do anything anime related. So, those are the only three companies I could see potentially doing something in the future, unless some like mega dark horse like Berkshire Hathaway comes out and is like, hey, yeah, we decided to make an anime streaming service. So I'm intrigued. I don't think Crunchyroll will face much in terms of competition for a very long time, which is a little bit scary, but I'm curious how you guys feel about monopolies, and specifically Crunchyroll's new essential monopoly that they've got of anime in the West, which is a pretty big fucking industry to essentially own. I don't actually know if Funimation is going to be continuing as like a subsidiary at all. I imagine they're going to completely combine the streaming aspect and merge Funimation's library with Crunchyroll. I know they've already begun doing that. I'm not sure why they're staggering it. When I looked it up originally, I didn't find a reasoning for that, but that might have changed. But I don't know, because I know that in the past, at least, Funimation was an anime publisher in the West. So I'm not sure if they'll still keep Funimation around as just a publishing label, or if Funimation is literally going to just be cannibalized and then tossed aside. So if you have any information about that, let your boy know. I'm hoping in the next video I will no longer be sick, but if I am, the rule applies. Don't be mean to me. So just remember that.